In today's episode, Moscow and China mark the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations.
We've been growing the potential of our relations for a very long time. Both Russia and China have established a solid platform.
The Festival of China at the Vidyanka Exhibition Center.
The food is delicious. Where else can you taste some authentic Chinese food?
A grandson of the great Confucius told Muscovites about his ancestor using a brush and paints.
Over 50 works of art are showcased at the exhibition. All of them are intended to tell visitors about Confucius and his disciples.
Hello, I'm Mike Gibson, and I am right now on Druzhba Street. And over my shoulder, you can see the Chinese embassy. It's no coincidence that we're here, because our program today is all about friendship. A friendship that has lasted for over 70 years. A friendship between two countries, China and Russia. In the autumn of 2019, the People's Republic of China and Russia marked the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations. To commemorate the occasion, several major events took place in Moscow, which were attended by our crew. A large-scale business forum, the Festival of China, which lasted for several days, exhibitions, concerts and masterclasses. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of events in Moscow, where you could become better acquainted with the business community of the country, as well as its history and culture. Russia and China are bound together by their long-term relations. 70 years ago, the USSR actively supported the creation of the new state of the People's Republic of China, with Mao Zedong as its leader. In 2019, relations between the two countries remain strong, yet more pragmatic than ever. The Hyatt Hotel Moscow, the digital economy Russian-Chinese business forum, opened with a large-scale Festival of China in Moscow, held to mark the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Russia and China. The Moscow Business Forum brought together more than 500 top managers from the companies of both countries. Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the People's Republic of China to the Russian Federation, Zhang Hanhui, opened the forum with a welcome speech. After his speech and the welcome words of other honoured guests, forum participants began to work in various sessions devoted to specific topics.
This large event is dedicated to the 70th anniversary of the creation of the People's Republic of China and the 70th anniversary of Russian-Chinese relations. It includes a business forum focused on the digital economy. Most importantly is that we see the expression of mutual interest and mutual investment in state-of-the-art technologies. In fact, the nature of Russian-Chinese cooperation is evolving. We are moving from quite simple forms of trade, such as raw materials or purchases of Chinese machinery and technical equipment, to the creation of joint digital platforms. It's important in the areas of trade, education, data security, protection from cyber threats, and, most importantly, the tourist industry. In this sense, Moscow, which today receives more than 1 million Chinese tourists per year, is certainly very interested in creating an attractive environment, including with cutting-edge digital technologies. I believe no other city has been so actively present in the Chinese information space as Moscow.
Last year, trade turnover between Russia and China reached a record high level of $100 billion. Now, both countries have set a new goal to boost this number to $200 billion by 2024. Energy exports account for the largest part in current trade turnover with China, but experts believe that there's a need to find new ways and expand the list of goods that may be of interest to Chinese colleagues.
These relations are developing and growing. It is becoming even easier to work together. Over the past 5 years, what we saw when we had only just begun, when we participated in the organization of Eurasian logistics conferences. Those were the early days of high-speed trains going between China, Russia, and Europe. They were just at the beginning of their journey. Many were skeptical about their development prospects, that is, that they would be more cost-effective than maritime transport. But today, we see a double to triple level of growth in terms of traffic. On top of this, the political climate has changed. Russia has turned its face toward China, and China has done likewise towards Russia. 5 years ago, there were skeptical people who didn't believe that the trains from Shanghai would reach Moscow in 10 to 14 days. or Europe in 9 days. There were people who doubted that trains could travel uninterrupted across the middle of Russia on the Trans-Siberian Railway, whose throughput capacity is low. But we know that this throughput capacity has not yet reached the level it had during Soviet times. Back then, the Trans-Siberian Railway handled a much bigger volume of cargo from Russia than it does today. So there's still plenty of room for perfection and growth. The only thing that we see is the largest volume travels from east to west. So it's in the interests of Russia to expand exports to maximize our potential. Consequently, we're talking about the West, from the west to the east. Also, the development of transit shipments from Europe to China, because it's Russian railways that earns money from transit. RZD, infrastructure. It has been developing and gaining investments to ensure growth in this area. This is the reason why the Russian government and Russian policy are focused on boosting exports and export-oriented activities. Because without exports, we won't have big trains, containers, and so forth heading to China. We need to grow this business. We need to subsidize it. So the general picture is very optimistic.
Today, any Muscovite can buy Chinese goods via a couple of clicks on any computer or smartphone. In the area of digitalization, e-commerce is more and more becoming a global economic trend.
Yandex Market actively helps Chinese manufacturers promote their goods and brands across Russia. We have a number of projects aimed specifically at promoting brands in Russia. This product category includes smartphones, electronics, home appliances, and so forth. We help with getting orders in retail outlets as well as with maximizing promotion and increasing traffic. The development of business relations between China and Russia is in its active phase. This is due to the excellent relations between Vladimir Putin and our President Xi Jinping. I see many opportunities for both countries. Firstly, these are opportunities for Russian companies in China and, as a result, for Chinese companies in Russia. In terms of e-commerce, I would say that the development trend is 25%. And this number will certainly be growing in the future.
Just several years ago, there was no such concept as a digital economy. However, today it's now a reality. Many experts believe that this area of commodity-money relations is becoming a new driver of the country's economic growth.
We've been growing the potential of our relations for a very long time. At the level of country leaders, both Russia and China have established a solid platform. This includes a system of contracts and continuous consultations. All of this was destined to come to fruition. Most importantly, this was to encourage the growth of small and medium-sized business so that it feels mutual interest and learns how to work together. Today, we can see that the seeds we planted 5 years ago have gradually started to sprout. For example, in joint business forums, they include exchanges of delegations and contract signings. There are also services, which, on the face of it, are not that important, yet they account for a significant part in the general structure of our relations and logistics contracts.
Today, partners in Asia, including China, show serious interest in Moscow, first and foremost in the area of urban planning.
We work closely with Nikken Sekkei, a Japanese company specializing in the construction of transport hubs. There are over 100 transport hubs designed and built in the city. Our colleagues at CRCC, a Chinese construction company, are working with us. They are building the metro for us. They have their own tunnel boring drills. We make full use of their experience too.
Zhao Hunju, an official representative of CRCC, came to Moscow in 2017 to build the metro. Today, almost 2 years later, he works on the construction of the large Circle Line of the Moscow Metro, where the Chinese company CRCC is building the southwest section of the new Circle Line.
We, the Chinese constructors, had two dreams: to build roads in England and the metro in Moscow. It's common knowledge that Moscow metro stations are among the most beautiful in the world. Consequently, our participation in the construction of the Moscow metro is a testament to the fact that they put their trust in us as professionals.
In 2 years, Zhao, along with his colleagues, fell in love with Moscow, Russian cuisine, and Russian culture. This is another common ground between the two countries.
Today, Russian-Chinese relations are heading in the best direction, along the brightest path possible. It would be fair to say that our relations have reached the most beautiful peak in the history of both countries. We see many events organized in the area of exhibitions, culture, and, like today, the scientific digital economy, especially over the past year. And of course, in politics. Our fund is one of the organizers of today's event. In fact, we are channeling and participating in the development of Russian-Chinese relations, especially between our two peoples. The fund was created in 2001. For nearly 20 years, we've been working in the areas of education, culture, science, and innovation. We organize exhibitions to promote culture. We work with museums throughout Russia and China, with the Tretyakov Gallery, the Russian Historical Museum on Red Square, the Kremlin Palace, and many more. In fact, we work together with almost all major state-run museums in Russia. And we bring their exhibitions to China, especially to the major Chinese museum on Tiananmen Square. It's the National Museum of Fine Art. We work year on year to show Russian culture, fine art, and different exhibits. This truly is helping to solidify Russian-Chinese relations. Speaking about the mutual interest of Russian and Chinese people, it's there for sure. And it's growing larger every year. The world is becoming more globalized. We all know this. Consequently, the need that different communities, world communities, and national communities have for each other is growing. Taking into account the current situation in the world and the shift of political and geopolitical focus, it's clear that Russia and China are drawing closer to one another. In the area of culture, this trend is even more visible than in politics. It's obvious how these two societies, Russian and Chinese, need each other.
The Business Forum was far from being the only place where you could observe this mutual interest of the two nations. While its participants were discussing key topics, Muscovites were becoming familiar with the culture of the Chinese people. The organizers decided to hold the Festival of Chinese Culture in one of the biggest parks in Moscow, VDNH. The entertainment and business aspects of the program were also dedicated to the 70th anniversary of Russian-Chinese diplomatic relations.
The purpose of this large-scale, diverse event was to bring the people of China and the people of Russia closer to each other through such mass cultural ties, through such festivals. That is, on the one hand, there is the official policy, official ties and contracts, but on the other, there's public diplomacy, which we promote through festivals like this one. And the second goal is to introduce this massive 5,000-year-long history of China, which we know only in various fragments, to Russians, Muscovites, and guests of the capital. We know this culture from movies and from brands, the Great Wall of China. In fact, it's a whole complex system built over the course of 5,000 years. Philosophy, culture, artists, writers. It's an enormous iceberg, and we have seen just the very tip. The purpose of the festival is to reveal this underwater part. Probably not all of it, but at least some part.
Guests from the Celestial Empire prepared many surprises for Muscovites. On that day, more than 10 locations were open in the park. Over 30 Chinese groups from Beijing, Shanghai, Suzhou, and Hefei arrived in Moscow to demonstrate their talents and achievements.
Our group has already traveled to more than 50 countries. Now it's Russia's turn. Russia has a rich culture and history. We are always happy to be here. I believe it's a great opportunity to strengthen the relations and friendship between our countries. This festival is very well organized. Musicians in our group play two key Chinese musical instruments, guqin and sanxian. Our repertoire includes music of two different genres, traditional and modern Chinese music.
During the festival, you could see Chinese drummers, artists of the Beijing Opera, and dancers with elements of Tai Chi, the martial arts of Taoist hermits. Almost all the artists admitted that performing for Muscovites was a great honor. That's why behind the scenes, they all rehearse their pieces with real passion. On the day of the festival, Muscovites had the opportunity to enjoy free masterclasses, Chinese lessons, a lecture on Oriental medicine, and classes on Qigong health exercises.
China is quite an ancient country with a very rich history and truly rich traditions. I've been to Beijing twice. I liked it a lot. The Chinese gave me a very warm welcome. They are such interesting people. I've been interested in the East, Japan, China, and Korea for a long time. I've been practicing Qigong. I like Chinese culture, Oriental styles and practices. I've come here simply to experience something which this exciting and extraordinary country can give us in Russia, in Moscow. I'm very happy that forums like this one take place. I can come here with my girlfriend and we have a nice time and relax.
During the course of the festival, new art pieces created by Chinese masters appeared on Industry Square of Vidianka. For example, an exhibition of panda sculptures. Shortly before the festival, as a sign of mutual respect, Chinese partners gave Moscow 2 live pandas as a present. Now the male and the female, Jui and Dindin, live in the Moscow Zoo.
We wouldn't have pandas if it weren't for the friendship between our peoples. This is thanks to the wisdom of our leaders. It is a great honor for us, all the more so, as this year our countries are marking the anniversary of their diplomatic relations. Of course, we are very proud and honored to have this trust, to have the opportunity to participate in this scientific conservation program focused on preserving and studying this endangered species, the giant panda.
The giant panda is included in the red list of threatened species in the vulnerable category. These bamboo bears live in some provinces in China and Tibet. Now, a new home for these unusual bears is the renovated complex, China's Fauna, located in the Moscow Zoo. And now we're returning to the Festival of Chinese Culture, to the most delicious part of the park. In the food court area, guests were treated with meat on skewers, steamed buns, dozens of Chinese noodles, and green tea.
Some stereotypes that we had about China have been shattered. The stereotype that Chinese eat with chopsticks is still with us, because they give out only chopsticks in the food court here. The food is very delicious, it's spicy. Where else can you taste some authentic Chinese food? Unusual tastes, chicken with cucumbers, for example. We were very surprised when the Chinese began singing Russian songs here, and how well they can speak Russian. It's true, China is a big country, and it's very exciting for us to get to know each other better.
Specialists from China also brought some food for thought. At Vidianka, presentations of educational programs at Chinese universities took place, as well as Chinese language and calligraphy lessons.
One of the distinctive features of Chinese painting is that artists draw concepts rather than physical objects. For example, take this work, which I've just finished during a master class for our Russian friends. It's one of the most famous symbols of China known in Russia. It's bamboo. The bamboo is like one family. Its various branches are members of one and the same family.
The friendship between Russia and China has endured the test of time. 70 years of diplomatic relations is a long time, and this calls for a big celebration. 3 days of the festival is only a part of the major cultural and entertainment program. Great Confucius is the name of the exhibition of Chinese artists that opened in the Chinese Cultural Center in Moscow. This is a large-scale project which has become possible thanks to the efforts of many well-known Chinese artists. The travelling exhibition visiting European countries has brought together 60 masters and calligraphers from all across China. They created their works to tell about their country via brushes and paints. The focus of attention is on one key figure, the ancient thinker and philosopher of China.
This year, we mark the 2570th anniversary of the birthday of Confucius. Throughout this time, his ideas have remained the core of the culture of the Chinese people. The central ideas and main concepts that he proclaimed 2,500 years ago serve as a basis on which Chinese culture has been evolving during this time.
Mr. Kun Weike, director of the Shandong Academy of Fine Arts, is one of Confucius's descendants of the 78th generation. He brought over 50 Chinese paintings and 10 calligraphic works with classical quotes from the 4 books of Confucianism to the exhibition in Moscow.
All these works are to tell the visitors about Confucius, about his ideas, because up until now, even in modern China, there are people who recognize Confucius's merits and have great respect for him.
The master created his compositions only using ink, brush, and paper. Unlike in the European tradition, there's no color, light, or perspective. While creating his works, Mr. Kun Weike used only several shades of ink. In Chinese painting, which is more about philosophy, bright colors are almost non-existent.
Chinese painting is the painting of brush strokes, and it is done with ink. This is the reason why you often see works with no color. There's a notion of contour painting in Chinese art, with only one color of ink being used.
The works of Chinese masters became a source of inspiration for the professional artists, connoisseurs of fine arts, and students who visited the exhibition.
Superb paintings, outstanding masters. In fact, China abounds with artists who paint in the Guohua style. Flowers and birds. That's why the impressions of their works are most joyful. The whole of Europe and Russia, we are the descendants of the Hellenic culture. China is about Confucius. He is our contemporary. It's another blood. It's another vision of the world. That's why the artists were different. That's what makes it that much more interesting. As the great Mao Zedong used to say, "Let all the flowers in the celestial empire bloom." The more styles in art we have, the more different and diverse art is, and the greater its unity. Perhaps you immerse yourself in ancient times when you are studying these paintings. That's what aristocrats were busy with. Here we see all 4 types of their activities. It's playing the guqin, painting, calligraphy, and chess. You immerse yourself in the everyday life of ancient China. It's a fantastic learning experience. It's a pleasure to see professional calligraphers who demonstrate their skills. The event is well organized, at the highest possible level. I think it's not the last event in this venue which I've come to see.
The organizer of the exhibition, the Chinese Cultural Center, was opened in Moscow in 2017. Over the course of 2 years, it has organized and held dozens of various events around the city. The center has become a place where Muscovites can become familiar with Chinese culture and learn the Chinese language.
Speaking about the courses in Chinese, the Chinese Cultural Center is holding them together with the Confucius Institute of Moscow University. The methods and learning materials of the university, without a doubt the latest ones, are being used for this purpose. Furthermore, there are other courses which are related to the traditional culture of China. These are courses in painting, calligraphy, qigong, tai chi, Chinese chess, and table tennis.
The celebration of the 70th anniversary of Russian-Chinese diplomatic relations is over, but the relations between the 2 countries continues on. As a result, Muscovites will have many more occasions to learn about China and its culture. 70 years of friendship between China and Russia is a fantastic example for many countries around the world, and I think there's a lot that we can all learn from that. This is the program Capital Ideas Life. Sai San, which translated from Chinese means goodbye. See you in the next program.